Okay, sir. Okay. Tapicero. Tapos tapicero. Well, kita bababa.
Hello. Hello, Reggie.
Hello. Hi.
Hello.
President Peter, good afternoon. My Brett.
Hi, this is Fred.
Good afternoon, President Peter.
Hi, Yvonne. Nice seeing you, Yvonne. I'm George.
Yeah, George, hi.
Reggie. Hi. Hi.
Hi, George.
Hi, Brett. Hi, Reggie.
Hello. Hello.
Hello, EP Reggie.
Hello.
Hello.
How are you? How are you, Mon?
Yvonne, how are you?
Hello, Louis. I'm Louis.
Hello.
Hi, Felix.
Hello.
Hi, everyone. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon,
Hi, Chris.
everyone. EP
Hi,
Felix.
George.
Hi.
Alfred.
Reggie, are you in the Rotary Club office?
Yes, I am, George.
Yeah. Okay. Hi, Felix. Hi, PB Felix.
We are here violating the IATF.
Yeah, you have to.
Hello everyone.
Hello, everyone.
Hi, Pare Felix.
Pare George. Saan ka?
Nasa bahay.
Mukhang marami sa Rotary office ngayon, ah.
Merong Paul Harris awarding. Kaya marami sila.
Yeah.
There's a limit of 10, no? Di ba? The maximum allowed is 10.
Yes. Sometimes it may not be 10, depending on the size.
Size of the person?
Yes.
Oh, our speaker is
PG,
coming in.
Yan, nandiyan na ba si speaker natin?
Okay.
Yep, he's here. He just entered.
Hi, Mr. Speaker.
Ilan ba tayo? Ang daming ang dami na sa board. Good luck.
Toti Chikiamco also chaired the legislative committee in PCCI.
Oh.
When you were president?
No, now.
Now?
That committee is under me. So I asked for his assistance to chair.
Gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to start our meeting. It is 2 o'clock.
Yes.
I am past President Reggie Nolido, and this is our 14th meeting in this Rotary year under the presidency of President Peter Manzano, whom I am now calling to call this meeting to order.
Good afternoon, fellow Rotarians, our lovely aunts and guests. I now call this 14th regular meeting of the Rotary Club of Makati to order.
Before we start, we are going to first remind you of some house rules in the conduct of our meeting. Ron, please post it. Please remember, please be advised that the microphones of non-program participants will be muted to help keep the background noise to a minimum. Second, may we request the visiting Rotarians and guests to please type in the comment box your name, your club or affiliation, or the RC Makati Rotarian who invited you to participate in this meeting so we can properly acknowledge you later in the program. Third, for our open forum after the talk of the speaker, in case you want to ask a question, please use the raise hand button or simply notify us by typing in the comment box. Alternatively, you may want to type in your question and we will try to accommodate it during the Q&A. And last, please don't leave yet after the response of our president, as we will have our group photo op with our speaker. And with that, we can now proceed with the meeting. I'd like to call on Vice President and Director Chito Cantada to give us or lead us through the invocation, followed by the national anthem and the RC Makati hymn.
Heavenly Father, we thank you for this gathering again. For those of us who are safe and healthy, we thank you. For those of us who are not that lucky, we ask for your blessings. And also we'd like to ask you to please find a vaccine for this COVID virus. We all miss our family and friends. When we come back, we won't be shaking hands anymore. We won't be hugging each other anymore. We will be less human, but we will be thankful if we can get through this as soon as possible. All this we ask in the name of your Lord Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Amen.
As true Rotarians we live to lead.
And now for the four-way test. Of the things we think, say, or do, is it the truth?
Is it the truth?
Is it fair to all concerned?
Is it fair to all concerned?
Will it build goodwill and better friendships?
Will build goodwill and better friendships.
Will it be beneficial to all concerned?
Will it be beneficial to all concerned?
Thank you very much, my dear Rotarians. We can now move on to the next part of our program, which is the recognition of Paul Harris Fellows. For this, I'd like to call on past District Governor Tony Kila to go through the proceedings. Okay. Gov Tony is giving now to the President. Ninth, no?
So we will get a pin with 3 rubies. One more. Yeah, no, that's the end. The next one is Major Dono.
Yay!
Highest. Wow. Thank you, bro. Can I call on our moderator? Yeah. Past President Francis Rico.
Gov, si Chito muna. Ako. Sige. Kala ko si...
You know, wing, huh? Thank you. Lucky eight.
There you go.
Thank you. Next one is our Gloria George. Yes. Who's getting his cake for her fellow. So we get 2 rubies.
After Bimbo is Louis. There you go.
It's up to next year. Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
There, and last one, Chito Cantada. Sure.
All right. All Harris. All. Pati pa ito, dapat may distance eh? Distance naman po ng bote. Okay naman. Kasi naman sa camera.
So, apat akong ganyan, tapos may distancing.
O meron pang without mask?
No, without mask.
Without mask. Ito muna, sir. Wait lang.
Teka muna.
Ito muna. Without mask.
Ayan, sige.
Okay, the lover ball. Are our smiles a bit sour? Para maasim. Sabi mo ano, dapat naman tayo.
Okay, thank you, Gov Tony, for that. So, gentlemen, if you want to be able to come to the office and get a pin, contribute, and give Paul Harris Fellow. Next part is our greeting of our birthday and weddings anniversary celebrators. For those celebrating their birthdays, we have the following Rotarians. Felix Ang on the 28th of October. Oh, he's in the meeting. Happy birthday, Felix. Hiro Oba, also on the 28th of October. And Sam Young on the 31st of October. And for the Rotary Ans, kaya pala ako nandito. Sue Ann Nolido on the 31st of October. Yay! She does not know my new Paul Harris, don't tell her. And wedding anniversary, June and Beth Periquet on the 27th of October. So congratulations to all of you. The next part of our program, we will again call on PDG Tony Kila, this time for the presentation and introduction of our new members who will be inducted.
So, let me call on Vice President of the Club of Singapore, Classification Resource Management, Promoter, Vice President Brendan Nolito. Yes. Welcome. Then we have Lady Consular, Classification, Lawyering, Corporate Law, Proposer, Vice President Brendan Nolito. Yay. And I call on First District Governor Sid Garcia for the charging.
Thank you. Thank you, Tony. First of all, we'd like to welcome the new members of our club, Keith Harrison and Reggie Poneferada. I'd like to thank most especially past President Reggie Nolido for inviting these two gentlemen to join our club. As you have been adequately acquainted with the orientation given to you by past District Governor Tony and his team, I just want to give you a few reminders as you take on your oath as the newest member of our club. First of all, in Rotary, we believe on the importance of acquaintance as an opportunity for service. As a new member of this club, we expect you to develop friendships, to know each other, the new members, if you could get to know more members of our club. And you can do that by actively participating in our weekly meetings. Although right now it's basically virtual, but I'm sure there will be many occasions when we will have small gatherings. So your active attendance and participation is quite important so that you can eventually be integrated to the club. So I'm counting on you, Keith and Reggie, to be there in our gatherings, in our meetings, in our fellowship, so you can see the warmth and fellowship that only RC Makati brings among its members. Secondly, engagement. To be engaged is actually the way to serve our communities, our humanity. And to do that, you need to volunteer. If you haven't done so, may I request you to choose one or two committees wherein you can be a member or even be a committee chairman, depending on your expertise and on your preference. We have more than 50 committees in our club, so you have plenty to choose from. All you need to do is to get in touch with our Chief of Staff and find out what committee you should like to be involved in. For instance, we have Rotary Homes, we have the Rotaractors, Interactors, we have other communities that we are servicing. We have the voters registration campaign, which is going to be a long-term project up to the end up of the elections in 2022. So there are many committees, and if you really want to enjoy and be happy, as they say. If you want happy, you need to serve others. Get involved, volunteer, and be a committee members. Now, you have a classification that was given to you. So I'd like to talk to you a little about vocational service. Vocational service is the second avenue of service in Rotary. And Keith, what is your vocation that was given to you, your classification? Keith?
For me, it is result
What?
management. Result management.
Resort management. Okay, how about you, Reggie? What is the classification lent to you?
Corporate law. Corporate law.
Corporate law. So as you can see, we have chosen you because of your expertise in this field. Because Rotary believes in vocational excellence, and we hope that you will excel well in this chosen vocation. But much more than that, we would like you to use your vocational skills in many areas of our work. For instance, club management. I noted, Keith, you're a past president of the Rotary Club of Singapore. Perhaps you can lend us your expertise on how we can manage our club better. I also noted that you're involved in international service, in global grants. This is certainly a welcome information, and we hope that you can give us your experience and expertise. And I noted in your biodata you are a CPA, right? You have accounting expertise, so we need good people like you to help us manage our funds well. And I hope you will join these committees that I have mentioned: international service, global grants, youth service, and we will certainly be so blessed to have you give us your wisdom in these areas. Reggie, being new to Rotary, I think your expertise in law will do us well. Although we have a few lawyers with us, we can certainly learn more from you, aside from what we've learned from P. Louis, from past President Reggie. I'm sure you can give us more wisdom as we try to manage the legal affairs of our club. And of course, exercise leadership. You can volunteer to get involved in club meetings, in preparing for the program. That will be a big help to all of us. And finally, I'd like you to consider to join the Paul Harris, to be a member of the Paul Harris. A while ago, past City Governor Tony Kila inducted members either to be new Paul Harris or to be Paul Harris Fellows. You know, they contributed about $1,000, and it's really significant because right now there's so many people that we need to help. And the Rotary Foundation has given more than $3 billion a year. And our club had recently approved a COVID project where we will supply different hospitals for PPEs. And that was given to us by the Rotary Foundation. They gave us $150,000. And would you believe, our club only gave $20,000 for that project. So your contribution to the Rotary Foundation of $1,000 will go a long way, not only to help the Philippines, but so many people who are in dire need all over the world. Membership, or by becoming a Paul Harris Fellow, you don't need to pay it right up front. You can even pay that in several installments. So I'd like to request Reggie and Keith to consider to become a Paul Harris Society member soon. So with that, I'd like again to welcome Keith and Reggie to the Rotary Club of Makati. Let's all give them a big warm of applause. And of course, President Peter, our new members are ready to be inducted. Thank you.
Kindly raise your right hand and repeat after me. I,
I,
your name,
Reggie Conferada,
having been admitted as new member
having been admitted as a new member
of the Rotary Club of Makati, RI District 3830,
of the Rotary Club of Makati, RI District 3820,
do hereby solemnly swear
do hereby solemnly swear
upon my honor
to
faithfully and willingly discharge
faithfully and willingly discharge
the duties and responsibilities of my office,
the duties and responsibilities of my office,
fully conscious of the important obligations
fully conscious of the important obligations
which I have voluntarily committed to assume.
which I have voluntarily committed to assume.
I further pledge to uphold and defend
I further pledge to uphold and defend
the Constitution and bylaws of the Rotary Club of Makati
the Constitution and bylaws of the Rotary Club of Makati
and that of Rotary International,
and that of Rotary International,
ever putting into practice Rotary's motto,
ever putting into practice Rotary's motto,
service above self,
service above self,
and applying the four-way test
and applying the four-way test
as the basis of all my actions and actuations
as the basis of all my actions and actuations
to help advance the object of Rotary,
to help advance the object of Rotary,
giving emphasis to this year's RI theme,
giving emphasis to this year's RI theme,
Rotary Opens Opportunities.
Rotary Opens Opportunities.
All this I pledge and promise to do
All this I pledge and I promise to do
and observe to the best of my ability,
and observe to the best of my ability
without any mental reservation
without any mental reservation
or purpose of evasion.
or purpose of evasion.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Now you wear the apron.
Yeah. Apron of
Apron
service.
of service.
Thank you.
Reggie, ano ba? Sa Ponferrada from Leyte yan.
Yes, my dad was born in
Oh,
Leyte.
taga Barugo.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, Baruch.
I know. I'm from Leyte. Kilala ko po ako Ponferrada.
I'm raised here sa Manila, actually.
Hindi ka marunong mag-waray.
Buti ay lang.
Buti ay lang.
There you go.
You know, there's a
Now you will sign the apron.
In Spain?
Yeah.
Yes. Northern Spain.
Yes. Attorney Artencia po. Justice Ponferrada. Welcome, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you.
Oh, yeah.
There you go. Toti, George, good afternoon.
All right.
Welcome to the best club.
Yeah.
That's why
You're here.
You're still Panero.
Welcome.
Thank you very much.
All right. Who's next? Who's next?
Welcome to the club, Reggie and Keith.
Hindi ka nag-vlog.
Sa UP.
UP. Tapos may kami.
Welcome.
Ilan? UP.
Okay, I graduated okay.
Thank you.
Okay, last picture.
Okay.
Last picture. Last picture.
Class. Go.
Okay.
One more. Okay. Off.
There. All right.
Gracias.
Congratulations to our new members.
Yeah. Amen.
They will be very active members, I promise. All right. Before we move on to the President's time, we just like to acknowledge the presence of some of our guests who are with us in this meeting. Of course, we have to start with our governor. Well, I know she's not here today. No, our governor's not here. Okay. In which case, let's start with the Rotary Anns. First, Ann Pam Manzano, Nelly Bengzon, Yvonne Kwan, and Lu Lim Hoko. We have past District Governor Digna Ragasa of RC Vegan. Hello, PDG Digna.
Hi.
Perfect Vision Presidents. Imelda Cheteriales of RC Fort Bonifacio Global City. Roderick Ginto of RC Las Piñas. Loreto Samaniego of RC Las Piñas Camino Real. Edrolin Garma of RC Makati Central. Cynthia Chos Santos of RC Makati Cristo Rey. Mari Gons Gonzalez of RC Makati de la Costa, HV de la Costa. Earl Manyo of RC Makati Paseo de Magallanes. Catherine Ronquillo of RC Makati Olympia. Fernan Mabanta of RC Makati Poblacion. Stella Marie Ignacio of RC Makati Rockwell. Alasdair Thompson of RC Makati West. Erwin Bailon, RC Makati, Parañaque North. And Danny Delfin of RC Parañaque St. Andrew. And we also have a guest today, President Peter's daughter, Denise Petrin and Sophia Zoe Manzano are with us. RAED Charlotte Cruz is also with us. Oh, the wife of our new inductee, Keith, Rachel Harrison is also with us. Nice to see you here, Rachel. Kevin Vosotros and RC Makati San Lorenzo, Styron and Bel Painor. Welcome to our club meeting. Now we'd like to call on the President to give his President's time.
Thank you, PP Reggie. Good afternoon, fellow Rotarians, our lovely aunts and guests. Here's to apprise you of the goings-on in our club. First, last Saturday, my Aunt Pam and I, together with President Sherwin Torres of RCM Southwest, went back to Barangay Puray in Rodriguez, Rizal to deliver the second round of printed modules for the distance learning of students of Puray High School, many of whom belong to the Dumagat Remontado tribe. We turned over the learning materials to the educators who met us in a covered court in Puray as the rivers were unpassable even with our 4x4s. We shall be going back there soon to deliver the solar-powered charging sets requested by the Puray High School for the students' use. We plan to adopt Puray as our Rotary Community Core, and we shall be making frequent visits there for projects and activities that will further help their community. Second, also last Saturday, our district hosted a town hall meeting to celebrate the annual World Polio Day. It was a proud moment for RC Makati as several of our members played key roles in the program. PDG Sid Garcia, in his capacity as District Rotary Foundation representative, delivered the welcome remarks. Preet Paing Echanova, who spoke about the history of Rotary's polio effort, the seed of which was sown on the ground on which stands our own clubhouse, and of course, past President Reggie Nolido, who performed the doxology. So thank you to our members who participated virtually in the meeting last Saturday for the End Polio Now campaign. Third, next week we shall be sending out social media poster invites nationwide for the call for volunteers to make graphic designs, videos, articles, and blog posts for the Your Vote, Your Voice campaign. This aims to tap on those who may want to help make the campaign materials, especially our creative Gen Zs and millennials. We hope all of our members and our partner clubs will help us disseminate the invites. We shall be giving the volunteers certificates of recognition and appreciation for their help. Finally, next week, November 3, will be having two speakers. Juice Bilks, the head of Impact Advisory and Finance Department, Asia Pacific of the Credit Suisse, and James Gifford, the Global Head of Impact Advisory and Finance Department of Credit Suisse. And they will be speaking on the topic, how to invest for impact and sustainability. So that's it for me. Pipi Reggie, back to you.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Our guest speaker is quite known to be a columnist, and to introduce him properly, I'd like to call on past President Eddie Yap to give the introduction.
Good afternoon, fellow Rotarians. Can you hear me? Okay. It is my honor to introduce our guest speaker today. He's a person who, in my book, let me see. Okay, I'll switch on my video. Okay, he is a person who, in my book, I consider a most analytical economist and a conscientious, dedicated thought leader and advocate of public policy. I said so this morning in our Bible group, and I'm pleased to see that our fellow member Mike Toledo agrees. And he is a good and prolific regular writer in National Business Daily, where he shares his views and advocacies. He's frank and upfront. Now, he's well equipped to do so as an economist, having graduated summa cum laude from a university that is now better rated than the other university. And with a master's in professional studies in media administration in Syracuse University, New York. He is member of the board of a think tank, Institute of Development and Econometric Analysis, IDEA. He published a book, The Way Forward, The Path to Inclusive Growth, in 2016. And recently, he co-authored Momentum, Economic Reforms for Sustaining Growth. My personal encounter with our guest speaker was 22 years ago in November 1998, a year after the Asian financial crisis. Both of us were invited to make a presentation on the topic, Who is Afraid of Capital Controls, in a forum that was organized by the former Economic Planning Secretary, Solita Monsod, who headed the Human Development Network. Now, for lack of time, I'll not say more about this one, but I would like to add that on another occasion recently, that was last year, we again shared the same stage as reactors in the book presentation of global best-selling author Jacques something. I would rather not remember his name. When he wrote that book, When China Rules the World. Now, in this one, we were in sync as we shared chinks in the armor of China's economic miracle. Our speaker is the president of the Foundation for Economic Freedom, composed of a group of what we call incrementalist advocates, composed of professionals, economists, lawyers, accountants, capital markets practitioners, and former government officials. And I'm proud to be a member of this organization and to call him my president. If our country has less rent seekers who live off the fat of the land or from political connections or patronage, it is because of the likes of our speaker. If we were able to tame the raging inflation last year, it was because of the new rice importation policy that was championed by our speaker. And that is just among some of the many advocacies that had a material effect on the well-being of the public. And by the way, as it is, while he is at it rather, He helps earn foreign exchange for our country, being in the BPO business process outsourcing business as a tech entrepreneur. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my privilege to present to you economist par excellence, Mr. Calixto Chikiamco. Let's welcome him.
Thank you, Eddie. Thank you very much for your kind introduction. My achievements really pale compared to yours for revolutionizing transport in EDSA. I salute you for doing that. It has helped a lot of our countrymen.
Thank you.
And I would like to thank also President Peter Manzano and the Rotary Club of Makati for inviting me. This is the first time after a very, very long while since I've spoken before a group of Rotarians. To my own, well, I was a member before of the Rotary Club of Manila, but that was, 20 years ago before I was not so busy. So anyway, I will proceed to my presentation. Let me share with you my presentation so that you will see the so the title of my speech is The Perfect Storm. If you know that movie, why the Philippines faces prolonged economic pain. Well, this is not news. The Philippines is worst in managing the pandemic. The Philippines entered the top 20 countries in the world with the most number of cases. Let me see, I have some of the data here. Actually, Indonesia has more cases now, but on a per capita basis, we have 3,340 cases per million population compared with Indonesia's 1,406 per million population. Vietnam is only 12 cases per million of population. So we have, although we have the most, the strictest and longest lockdown in the world, we still are the gold medalists here in Southeast Asia. However, the good news is, of course, the positivity rate has improved and the production rate, the R0, is, I think, less than 1 now. But the problem is what will happen if we start opening up. That's what we're doing now. So while testing and treatment has improved, tracing remains a problem. Most of the tracers are doing manual tracing and coding. And this is according to even General Del Rio, former DIC secretary, that Stay Safe app is a failure. They've given up. Consequently, without testing, tracing, and treatment and isolation, government will have to be reliant on blunt lockdowns if and when cases start rising again in the wrong direction. So we have experienced the worst contraction in Philippine post-war economic history, even worse than in 1983, I think. And these are the forecasts. The government forecasts only about 5.5 to 6% economic contraction. They're the most optimistic. I tend to believe Global Source and Fitch. We should have an economic contraction of about 8 to 9%. So pretty grim. So this is the projection of ADB comparing with the other countries, but their projection is only a 7.3% economic contraction compared with Thailand. Now Thailand, of course, is more vulnerable to the decline in tourism. their GDP is very reliant on there. Therefore, they have had a also severe contraction, even though they have managed to control the pandemic. The global economic outlook continues to be grim and uncertain. The IMF forecasts a global contraction of 3.9%. Vaccines, even if successful, will only become widely available in the third quarter. Now, the other problem with vaccines is that almost all vaccines, except the one of Johnson & Johnson, I think, will require 2 shots. And they will all be required refrigeration to be transported. So you imagine the problem if, to vaccinate half of our population, you'll have to deliver vaccines twice throughout the archipelago. So monetary policy, while the central bank has been quite aggressive in loosening money supply, in pumping money into the system, as John Maynard Keynes said, monetary policy is ineffective in the absence of animal spirits and cautious bank stance. So it's like pushing on a string. In fact, credit extension was negative in the third quarter, and banks investing in government securities more than lending. So fiscal policy should be more effective, but government in general is corrupt and ineffective. This is some economic toll. The unemployment rate in July was around 10%. Again, let's not read too much on what the government says about the lower unemployment, etc., because officially you are employed if you only work 1 hour the past week. So I tend to believe more the SWS surveys when they ask, may trabaho ba kayo o hindi? And according to SWS, as of July, 45.5% of adults report joblessness. And the hunger rate has also increased to about at least 1/3 of the population is reporting, adult populations reporting increased hunger, involuntary hunger. Consumption, investment spending is at historic lows. And of course, industries have been hit with manufacturing, construction, and transportation, storage. Of course, hotels, restaurants also have been hit. So my forecast, not V-shaped recovery, but prolonged economic pain. Why is that? There are a number of reasons combining to the perfect storm. One is our stingy economic stimulus. The Bayanihan 1 and 2 total funding is only 3% of GDP. Our stimulus spending is very paltry compared with our neighbors. Thailand is at 15%, Malaysia 22%, Vietnam at 10%, Indonesia at 11% have spent more. We have spent less. Now, a rice bill, which was supposed to allocate about 1.3 trillion for the stimulus, was not passed. Now, the CREATE bill, I think, is the wrong prescription. Of course, my friend Eddie Yap might disagree with me on this one. However, I think it's the wrong, that's what the government is now pushing as its response to the economic contraction. But I think it's the wrong prescription. Why? Tax cuts won't lead to economic stimulus, because the present problem is demand shock. It is not it's not a question of poor investment spending because of the high taxes. So most likely, even if the CREATE bill is passed and the tax cuts take effect, corporates will invest in treasuries or stock buybacks or increase pay for management. In other words, corporates will not likely increase investment spending just because they have stock savings. Also, Create Bill will only work if there's a huge increase in new investments, but investments won't come without liberalization and structural reform measures. So if investments don't come, the government will be forced later on to impose consumption taxes in order to make up for the deficit, for the fall in government revenues. I'm not against Create Bill per se. I am for postponing it at this time. Of course, as you know, our 2021 budget is establishes the wrong priorities. It has a 10% nominal increase. I think about what 6-7% real increase. However, it is full of wrong priorities. It is not meant to counter the negative effects of the pandemic. For example, it allocates 16.4 billion just for local insurgency conflict. This is bigger than the budget of the Department of Trade, which is only 5 billion. There have been increases in DPWH and DOTR, but poor execution by DPWH and DOTR. It's also, as mentioned before by Senator Drilon, it's full of pork with a lot of unallocated items in the budget. Even the different DOH budget has been reduced by 50 billion. Actually, also for vaccines, only 2.5 billion. Now, I understand that the new leadership in the House has increased this to something like 50, but there is a question whether those are going to be legal. I think Senator Lacson has raised a constitutional issue whether you can make some adjustments even after the third reading in the House. There has also been a decrease in the budget for agriculture, although agriculture is the only sector that showed growth in the first 6 months of the year. So there's another reason why economic pain will be prolonged. We have a lot of labor rigidities. This means high minimum wages and labor security regulations, which will prevent the labor market with excess supply of unemployed labor from clearing, leading to sluggish employment and income growth. You know, if there's an excess supply of everything, actually, prices should fall so that there will be a take up. But that's not going to happen with the rigidities that we have in place. Even now, there's another official holiday, a holiday for the Iglesia ni Cristo, being considered by Congress to be added to already 26 official holidays. Now, if you're an entrepreneur, you're already paying 14 months pay, you know, with the holidays and 13-month pay. And you are seeing actually lower sales because of the lockdown. So I don't know, actually DTI has reported that a third of all SMEs have already shut down. Again, there's uncertain leadership. We do not know the health of the president. It's been quite an up and down and uncertain. He seems to be quite healthy now, but he himself has admitted that he has a number of serious ailments which could turn for the worse at any time. So, so that is another uncertainty, and to the plan to be able to the program to have the economy recover by next year. Of course, this is another problem that we have: inefficient and corrupt institutions. We've seen how PhilHealth fund has been mismanaged in the face of our health crisis. There's, of course, and this we are speaking of not of just million peso losses, but billion peso losses. Even President Duterte said that DPWH corruption is also grave. Consumption will take a hit. Now, consumption is the biggest part of our economy, something like about 70% of the economy. So it will continue to suffer with the OFU remittances still down from January to June period, down in 4.2% in August. It went up a little in June, July, but probably because of the tuition, paying tuition, there'll be a higher remittance. We still have a high unemployment rate. We have the strongest currency in all of Asia, but this means actually lower income from OFWs. And cheap imports are more likely to displace local products. And of course, there's more fear and uncertainty with no vaccines for the majority of the population. And people are still afraid to go out and spend. I mean, if you just go to the malls, you can see that foot traffic is still quite anemic. The POGOs are also beginning to leave. I think there's a crackdown of the government of China against POGO operators, including invalidating the visas of Chinese workers. So according to real estate analyst David Lichu, about 200,000 square meters in POGO space went vacant in October. Personally, in my own office, we asked for and got a 30% discount from our landlord. So next year will be the year prior to the elections. So by October, candidates will already be positioning. So economic reform measures may be the victim as all candidates will position themselves for the elections in May of 2023. And these are the possible candidates. There are other factors. One is, of course, there are increasing tensions over Taiwan, something that we have to keep at the back of our minds. You can't say nothing can happen. As you know, the pandemic was a black swan, so it's possible that something could happen. The U.S. is taking a hard line now on the maritime claims. The other thing is we could also get squeezed by this conflict between the U.S. and China. The Trump administration, as you know, has a clean network program. By clean, that means they will not allow telecommunications that pass through China to access the data of U.S. citizens. This is the reason, in fact, why Facebook's line supposedly will cross from us to Hong Kong that was stopped. So it's now going to go through Taiwan. But this might have an effect too on our telcos, Globe and Smart, because they are using Huawei equipment. And they may be banned from accessing, for example, the American financial networks. There are other factors. Of course, there's a possible Biden presidency. Elections will be about 10 days from now. And its focus on human rights can pressure President Duterte and increase tensions and affect investments. This is clearer. Europe's parliament adopted a resolution to withdraw Philippine trade benefits under GSP Plus if government did not abide by International Convention on Human Rights. So about 400,000 jobs will be at risk from foreign-owned companies located in the Philippines serving the EU market. This will be a big hit on the Philippine exports if this comes to pass. So I'm not alone in projecting prolonged economic pain. This is from the IMF. The IMF projects the Philippines to be the worst in the world in terms of percentage point decline in growth forecast from between 2019 and 2025. In other words, in terms of possible loss output, potential loss output, the Philippines is number one. I guess because of the way it has managed the pandemic. However, there are some positive developments. I just want to mention them. One is, of course, there will be election spending toward 2022, 2023. So this will hopefully increase, spending and therefore give us some boost to the GDP. There's been a nuanced pivot back to the US by the Duterte government. You can see this from the Pemberton pardon, the non-cancellation of the VFA, and Duterte's own UN speech. At the same time, we could also view as positive the lifting of the ban on gas exploration. It could lead to the peaceful settlement of the South China Sea problem if China accepts the exploration using, I think, the joint venture agreement. If ever K-shaped recovery with only certain industries rebounding as the economy opens up, while the others, tourism, airline, retail, events, clothing, continue to face headwinds. My forecast for GDP next year is about 6%, but only because of the base effect. We're still not going to be there pre-pandemic capita, no? So country will take 4 to 5 years, continue to have the same GDP per capita pre-pandemic. So in conclusion, the Philippines faces a perfect storm. We have an ailing president, low trust in corrupt and inefficient institutions, election uncertainty, elections year focused budget, weak fiscal stimulus, and the geopolitics becoming more unfavorable with rising US-China tensions and Western focus on human rights violations in the Philippines. So that's it. Thank you very much. I'm open for questions.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much to our speaker. The floor is now open to anyone who would like to ask some questions. Let me scan the group and see if there are any raised hands. Anybody with any questions at this point? Yes, George. George Barcelon.
Myself. Toti, you remember we were discussing about the condonation of the agri loan.
That's right.
And that would give the boost because, as you said earlier, for the last 6 months, it was only the agri sector that has a growth of about, well, small growth, like 2%. But nevertheless, with the government advocacy of Balik Provincia, it's very important that these people going back to the province have some sort of income generating for them. And agri is one important sector, not only for our food sufficiency, but also to provide jobs. What do you think? How long will that take as far as the two bills, the condonation of the past agri loan, and then the agri-free patent on land? Can you elaborate on that for us? Thank you.
As you know, I've been advocating debt condonation. Why do I have been advocating it? Because the problem with agriculture is land fragmentation. CARP has led to the fragmentation of land. The average size now of our farmlands about 2 hectares or less, and it has resulted in decreased productivity. Well, debt condonation hopefully can, now, however, the problem is many agrarian reform beneficiaries are unable to pay their debt, because of the acquisition of land due to land reform. So because of that, they're unable to even lease the land. The CARP law prohibits them from leasing the land. So you cannot have land consolidation through lease presently. So that I am for debt condonation. It will lead to a structural transformation of Philippine agriculture. In fact, it was it nearly passed. It got passed in the House. It got passed in the Senate. But however, the Department of Finance opposed it. So it never it didn't come into law. So that's the big problem. I think we have to convince the Department of Finance that this thing will be good. After all, most are unable to pay their debt anyway, and this is one way to stimulate the economy. So.
Toti, may I echo something on that? You remember, for us, you remember the Masagana 99 program?
That's right.
Wherein a lot of money were poured into the agri, but end up with zilch, nothing, and then the government was holding a lot of bad loans. Maybe that is still fresh in some of our politicians' memory, and they may not be so open to this condonation.
No, the politicians are open to it. It was unanimously passed.
It's a finance.
It's the Department of Finance that opposed it.
Yeah.
So there is a almost unanimous consensus to pass the debt condonation among our politicians. So they're not the problem.
So
the problem are the finance people who think that this is will lead to moral hazard.
Okay.
Thank you. Right. Thank you for that. Our next question is from IPP Bimbo, to be followed by PDG Sid. Ask you what suggestions you have to improve or make effective impact of price stabilization.
I'm sorry, I can't hear. I'm sorry, I'm not able to hear it.
Hello.
Hello, I am not able to hear the question well.
Oh, wait.
Toti.
Hello.
Okay. IPP Bimbo?
Yeah, let me repeat my question. No? How can we improve the rice tariffication issue? No? It was brought up or installed precisely supposed to improve the productivity and bring down the prices of rice to the common man. However, what happened is, yes, the prices of local palay dropped to about 15 pesos, which is about almost break even only at best, and therefore depriving the largest group of people in that industry. I think half of the population of the country are agricultural workers, from any disposable income. On the other hand, the importations, which benefited mostly the people who could afford this imported rice, and the prices of the imported rice did not go down. It's still 40 pesos or so per kilo. So the gap happened that brought incomes at the provinces, at the provincial level, the biggest sector of our population, down to almost nothing. And then we're thinking people will go back to the provinces so that they will have jobs there. The reason the people don't go back to the provinces because there are no jobs there and no incomes. So number one is that law. How do we modify it? We all know that the biggest problem with that is smuggling. People import 100,000 tons and then pay. Yes, tariffication is supposed to be equalized by taxes paid on the, but we all know that smuggling is the biggest thing that is there. So, and then how is the money that was supposed to be raised from the taxes from this really filtering down back to the farmers? Is fertilizer subsidized? Are tools and equipment are being really made available now? Because what happens is they lost their income, but all of these benefits that are supposed to help them become more productive is not there. So what can be done with that law? I think economics always says, yeah, free the market and the prices will go down. Prices have not gone down, but local production went down because incomes, prices they can get for it dropped tremendously. So I think it has to be tweaked very seriously rather than just say the theory of economics is free the market and everything will go down. In the meantime, these guys are starving. Thank you.
First of all, I think prices did go down a bit from before. You know, I think I think you can find the regular rice below 40 pesos a kilo. You know, that's why inflation is actually the food component of inflation has actually gone down, and a local production, palay production did go up, and that's the reason why prices actually have gone down. Now, the problem of agriculture is really multi-headed. You know, there are many problems from logistics. Even if you produce cheaply, you know, bringing it to the market is quite expensive, from shipping, transportation costs, etc. No, so and we have to face the fact that we are really not competitive with Thailand or Vietnam, where they are. Vietnam, the local price about 18 pesos a kilo. You know, and you know what? They are promoting land consolidation. In fact, that's happening now in China, even in communist China. They're promoting land consolidation because that's the only way really we can compete. Because you know, in agriculture, you need science, you need capital, you need management. But if you're only a lowly farmer managing, you know, cultivating only 2 hectares of land, there's no way you can compete. You know, there's no way you can improve your productivity. You know, in terms of even just mechanization. And they say all cooperatives, etc. It has been a failure because of the transaction cost of dealing with so many people. The only solution really is to allow land consolidation in agriculture, either by through rent, through leasing, or you remove the CARP limitation of 5 hectares of land. But politically, that's not. It's going to be very hard to do. So the solution that I have been advocating is really the debt condonation, so that our farmers can lease the land to agribusiness entrepreneurs. Those who can, successful farmers who can make the land productive for 100, 200 hectares. But right now, that's not allowed. If you're a successful farmer, you're not allowed to expand.
Thank you very much. Our next question is from PDG Sid, to be followed by past President Tito Panilla. Sid?
Yeah. Thank you, Toti. Toti, I have two questions for you.
All right.
You mentioned in your presentation that the European Economic Union is threatening to cut jobs if the Philippines continue to violate human rights. No, what is your assessment of that becoming a reality in the next 6 months or so? Second question is, you mentioned in your talk that reducing taxes is not the solution, and what is the solution is creating demand. No? Could you come up with some suggestion wherein the government can create the demand so the economy can pick up?
Sure. Well, to your last question, first, well, actually, I support the Arise bill in principle. No, maybe not as big as 1.3 trillion, but maybe slightly lower. Because you need to put the money in people's pockets. No, that's one. Secondly, I had been advocating. I know this is quite controversial, to weaken the peso, because the weakening the peso will allow OFWs to have more incomes. and also protect our local industries from very cheap imports. That's another. And third, of course, what I discussed with George Barcelon, which is debt condonation. If you condone the debt of the farmers, they will respond by investing more in improving the productivity of their land. And at the same time, it will allow for the legal consolidation of lands toward more successful entrepreneurs. Now,
Go ahead, sir. Go ahead.
And what's the first question again?
The first question is regarding the possibility of the European Economic Union from prohibiting European companies from doing business here because of human rights violations.
Well, it's 50-50, because that's the European Parliament. That if we lose those GSP privileges, I think President Duterte appeared in TV today in saying that he's not afraid to go to jail for violating human rights. So I don't know. It will be a irresistible force versus an immovable force. So it's 50-50 at this time. Now, Duterte will probably get more pressure if Biden wins, because for sure, they will be emphasizing that human rights aspect of foreign policy.
All right. Before we move on to PP Tito, I just like to ask some questions on the chat room. What industries will have a significant contribution in being able to achieve a 6% projected GDP growth in 2021? And what are the outlooks of BPOs, call centers, and digital marketing outfits?
Well, call centers will continue to grow. I think they have been not affected as much. In fact, I heard their executive director of their association say that they'll be hiring about maybe 20,000 people next year. That's according to the for the BPOs. What else will be achieve the 6%? Of course, supposedly construction will be up again because of especially with elections coming, and there's an increased budget for DPWH and DOTR. The question is whether they'll be be able to spend that one fast enough. So construction will still be. I understand also that some aspects of the real estate industry, especially residential, for suburban, are enjoying very good growth rates right now, as people want to move from living in tight cramps in condos to maybe houses in Cavite, Laguna, etc. Since you can anyway work from home, so there are certain sectors that will probably see some growth. And, although of course digital will see tremendous growth. I mean I think Globe and Smart, their GCash and PayMaya has seen what 500-600% increase in growth during the pandemic, no? So yung mga digital mga online, I think they're really have taken advantage of the situation. They're able to service those who are ordering from home.
Our next question is from PP Tito, to be followed by Tony Lopez.
Hello, and thank you for your presentation, Professor. My question is on on our debt. The financial managers crow at the fact that our ratio of debt to GDP is low, around 40-45%. In fact, your chart shows it. And so they say, we're doing better than many countries, around the world. even against ASEAN countries or ASEAN neighbors. My question is, it might be premature to, to say that this is such a good thing, when on the other hand, they have not come out with statistics. I've not really come up with the latest revenue stream as a ratio of GDP. I was hoping that you would have something there, but I didn't find it. All I'm trying to point out is if that is also low, then there's the constraint. Says, as I said, well, I was a former banker. No, you can only borrow as much as what you can service in your debt, no, of your debt. Would you have data to share with us what our revenue stream, no? You can include their savings stream, because you mentioned Japan is fine. They have 200+ percent ratio to GDP, and most of it is actually funded by domestic savings. Would our country have some, some data, to relate to the borrowings,
Okay, thank you for the question. I would like to correct first. I'm not a professor. I don't teach. I'm an entrepreneur actually.
Okay,
Economist.
I'm sorry.
But
Well,
the only figure that I know is that the debt to GDP ratio is the fiscal deficit to GDP has actually worsened. The target before was about 3 to 4%. It's now 10%. Of course, that will happen because your GDP is shrinking and your revenues are, because when your GDP is shrinking, the less revenues you're taking in. So it's a kind of paradox, you don't want, they don't want to spend money, stimulating the economy because it will, lead to, a worsening of our debt to GDP figures, but at the same time, the GDP has shrunk, and leading to lower revenue take. So that's the problem. I personally believe that we can afford a much heftier or a more robust fiscal response. Just the interest rates are so low, and people aren't spending. So the quant of inflation, the danger of inflation is, I think, overblown. So I think in other countries they have managed to spend more than us in terms of their percentage of GDP. So I precisely, if you have a good rating, now is the time to make use of that rating. You spend now. But apparently they have a different view of the situation. Maybe one reason is because they think that it will only go to corruption. That's why they don't want to increase spending. That could be a reason.
well, I think Secretary Dominguez has said that many times. Yeah,
So-
they're afraid. They're afraid that it will filter down to the wrong pockets, the
But-
wrong parties. Yeah. Anyway,
Yeah, but on the other hand, if you don't spend, then you'll see people suffer. What we're seeing now is a humanitarian crisis. You have a lot of people, committing suicide now. There's been some figures that the increased suicides, increased hunger, large unemployment. So I don't know. I think what we need is really structural reforms. We need to open up the economy. I'm for removing the foreign ownership restrictions in the Constitution. We have to do that. We need some reform of our labor laws. It's too restrictive, too very rigid. We need that to restructure and modernize our agricultural sector. And we can only do that if we allow farms more than 5 hectares. And that's not going to happen unless we have debt condonation. So those are my prescriptions actually. But again, whether they'll proceed with that, that's another question.
The next question is from Tony Lopez, and then I will get to the questions on the chat box after him. Tony.
Hey, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Guest Speaker, for your presentation and your insights. I'd like to ask you please to expand on your thesis on the condonation of debts of the farmers. You know? In the your first comment was that by condoning their debts, the farmers will invest and that will make them productive. But my own experience is that the debt service of these farmers are actually very low. In fact, I believe that their basic problem is the managerial skills. And although the government has been pushing for a cooperative movement, this has in fact proven to be a failure. So on that, that's my first question on whether the condonation will actually make the farmers productive. And the second is that you said it will remove, the condonation will remove the impediments to legal consolidation so that farms can be more economic in size. But if you were a buyer of a land of a farmer, you could also pay the debt to the land bank and still allow yourself to expand into an economic size. Could you address this, please, Mr. Speaker? Thank you.
Yeah. First of all, legally, you can't do that. No, you cannot pay off and acquire more than 5 hectares. That's not allowed by law. The retention is only 5 hectares under CARP. So you can't consolidate that into 100 hectares, for example. No, you might be able to do that, underground, but legally you can't do that. No, so because right now under the CARP law, for as long as you have a debt, also you cannot also lease it out. I agree with you that in terms of that management is the problem. Not only management, but also capital, science, etc. Farming is a it's very scientific. You have to be very precise in agriculture, and that's why you have to allow successful farmers to expand. And right now, of course, if you condone the debt, some of them will probably invest more in their in improving the productivity. But for those who cannot, then they'll be free to lease it to those who can make it more productive. But right now they're not allowed to do that under the CARP law. So that's actually the bigger reason why there should be debt condonation. Now, people are saying, oh, there will be a what you call this moral hazard. You are encouraging them not to pay debts. Well, right now they're not paying it anyway. Only 25% are paying their debts. The rest don't. So at the same time, we give out tax amnesties, right? Does that create a moral hazard? We are just trying to be realistic. Let us just be realistic. And politically, this is the only solution to allow bigger farms. You cannot amend CARP now and remove the 5 hectare limitation. That will be very hard to pass through Congress.
All right. From the chat box, from Junjun Dairit, now past President Junjun, can the economy fully recover unless the attitude or fear of this virus is greatly attenuated?
Well, certainly it's a big part. I mean, those who have suffered the least and have improved, I mean, like South Korea, Hong Kong, Taiwan, they're the ones who, Vietnam, have managed to keep the pandemic under control. But the problem with us is that we have been resorting to dumb lockdowns. You know, the strongest and the strictest. I think we're the only country, or one of the few countries that shut down its public transport. You know, not even Italy in its height did they shut down public transport. Not in Japan or other countries or Singapore. They did not shut down public transport, but we did. And that has affected especially the workers. You know, science has shown that actually, like in Japan, for as long as you maintain some distance, have masks, and you don't talk, then you can use public transport safely. But unfortunately, we have a military mindset in terms of managing the pandemic. So we have been resorting to just lockdowns and restricting people's movements.
All right. The next question is from EVP Al Thompson. Our economy is 70% domestic consumption. So his question is basically, how can we spur more domestic consumption? How can we get more money to people so that they can spend in short order?
When I said it needs a combination of measures to put money in people's pockets. No, I'm for a more generous social amelioration program rather than what we have now. As I also said in recommending, I am for weakening the peso, because the peso immediately gives money in people's pockets. You know, at the same time protecting our local industries. Of course, you have to manage the pandemic. The problem is the way our governments manage the pandemic is that it was very harsh, and they've been using fear to be able to get people to comply. So now people are just afraid to go out, and some restrictions are just don't make any sense. Like for example, before there was a what's this curfew from about 8 o'clock. If you have curfew, the more you don't spread out the activity, and therefore they're more likely to congregate in the public transport trying to go home. You know, at the same time, this limitation about preventing young children from going out and older people. Now that dampens the desire of families to go out and eat and go to the malls, because you're not going to leave your lolo behind, or you leave your children behind if you want to go out, right? So how can we revive the economy with those kinds of measures?
Thank you very much to everyone. Unfortunately, due to the limitations of time, we will have to thank our speaker for answering our questions. I'd like now to call on our president to give his response.
Thank you, Pipi Reggie. Okay. In the campaign headquarters of then presidential candidate Bill Clinton is a poster with his slogan, "It's the economy, stupid." This has been a truism, as it has served as a constant reminder that when it comes to the government's approval ratings and winning elections, everyone ignores the scandals and the personalities and focus on how the economy is faring. This is doubly challenging not just the present administration, but likewise to all business leaders and professionals who are themselves stakeholders of our nation, considering the dire effects of the pandemic to our economy. Our speaker cited these reasons based on empirical data, why our country will be facing a prolonged economic pain, the perfect storm, as he captioned this talk. He cited how Philippines is worst in Asia in managing the pandemic, how global economic outlook continues to be grim and uncertain, and how we may not be seeing a V-shaped recovery for our economy. This perfect storm, he posits, is due to the physical condition of our president, the low trust in corrupt and inefficient institutions, the election uncertainty, a budget that is focused on the election, a weak fiscal stimulus, and geopolitics becoming more unfavorable to the Philippines. But it's not all dim and eerie. Our speaker also cited some positive developments like the expected election spending toward 2022, the president's surprise pivot to the United States as seen in the presidential pardon given to Pemberton, the non-cancellation of the Board Visiting Forces Agreement, and his speech last month before the United Nations where he raised the Philippines' landmark victory against China. Our speaker also cited the lifting of the ban on gas exploration, which clearly excited intense investor interest in speculative stocks with stake in drilling contracts. This we have seen recently as the share prices of PXP Energy Corp and Atok Big Wedge surged by nearly 50%, with Apex Mining gaining nearly 35%, while shares of PXP's parent firm, Felix Mining, jumped by almost 21%, all in just one trading day. And more than a week ago, two of our leading economic managers, Finance Secretary Carlos Domingos III and Bangko Sentral Governor Benjamin Diokno, both agree that with the calibrated reopening of the economy, things may start to turn around. Some positive data support such positive assessment. It has been reported that the calibrated easing of mobility restrictions led to improved better figures in the unemployment rate, which dropped to 10% in July from 17.7% in April, when strict lockdowns were still in place. Yes, our economic recovery will be a protracted one and an uphill climb. And much of it will depend on consumer confidence as well as to a great extent on the containment of the virus infection. However, I am also certain that the economy will recover down the road with the help of all stakeholders. We Rotarians are people in action. As members of the Rotary Club of Makati, we pride ourselves as captains of the industries we belong to. Let us do our part in preparing the people we lead in meeting this perfect storm. Let us all continue bringing hope to our people. For in the depths of this affliction, it is both consoling and reassuring to remember that famous adage, "This too shall pass away." On behalf of the Rotary Club of Makati, our lovely aunts, our district officers, the other Rotarians from the different Rotary clubs in our district, especially to my classmates, the Perfect Vision presidents, our Rotaractors, and all the other guests in attendance, please accept our heartfelt gratitude for taking time in being with us today. Once again, thank you, Mr. Calixto Chikiamco. Thank you very much. And as tokens of our appreciation for your time and service, we shall be giving you a copy of our 50th anniversary coffee table book, which contains our club's 50 years of community service and fellowship, together with a bottle of red wine for you to enjoy while going through the pages of our book. So again, thank you very much, sir.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Toti.
This 14th regular meeting of the Rotary Club of Makati is hereby adjourned. See you all next week, gentlemen.
We'd like to request everyone, please turn on your videos so that we can have a group picture. And Ron, please take over the group picture.
Okay, 1, 2. One more. 1, 2. Okay.
Thank you, everyone, and have a good day.
Thank you, Peter. Good meeting.
Congrats, President Peter.
Very good meeting.
And Reggie. Congrats.
Thank you. Congratulations.
Ed, bye.